Welcome back. So we spent a bunch of videos talking through expectation management and the expectation dashboard to try to make it so that you and your advisor can get in sync as early as possible on what your mutual expectations are, as this will greatly reduce the irritations that both of you experience down the road and just make the whole thing go smoother. But what happens if one of you doesn't meet an expectation that has been set up? Your advisor might not meet one, you might not meet one. Will this actually happen in real life? Yes, it will happen numerous times. So the key is not to hope that it won't happen, but instead to be able to get back in sync again quickly. Now, addressing this issue is much easier if you've already had the initial expectation management conversation, because it's something that you can refer to. It's a conversation that you've already had. It's a common history you've built together, that conversation, so you can refer to it later on. But when is it the right thing to do to bring this up? You know, if it happens once, maybe it's not worth bringing up, because could have just been a random thing, like your advisor didn't respond to you in 2 days, they responded in 4 days. But if it becomes a pattern, let's say your advisor said, yeah, I should be able to get back to you in at least a day or two with any question you might have, and it's 4 days, and then the next time it's 4 days, and the next time it's 5, then it's time to have a conversation to potentially reset that expectation or just check in to see what's going on. You don't want to be left wondering, I wonder when I'm going to get an answer back. It would be much better if you knew, so that you wouldn't be stuck wondering. But what if it's something on your side? What if you committed to doing something and something has come up, some life event, and you know you're not going to be able to get to everything? So let's say last week's meeting, you agreed you would try to do X, Y, and then Z. And you did X and you started on Y, but then some big life event happens, like maybe a relative gets sick and you have to go be with them for 3 days and focus on them, and so it's going to take all this time away. So what you want to do is you want to send a message to your advisor, like right away, just saying, at last week's meeting, we decided I was going to do X, Y, Z. I finished X, but we just had this thing happen. I need to go travel to visit my sister, so I'm not going to get as far as we hoped. We had the priority as X and then Y and then Z, so I'll stick with that and try to get as much done. Let me know if you want to change the priority. So sending a message like that keeps the advisor in sync. The more they are in sync with you with all these things, the better, because their expectations about what's going to happen don't drift apart from what is going to happen. So notice I also, in that message, I had you talking about the priorities. So if after the meeting they had thought about it and they're just remembering now because you're bringing it up, they're like, oh, actually it would be better if instead of doing X and then Y and then Z, they should do X and then Z. Then they have an opportunity to respond with, okay, I got your message, but let's change the priority to this. Now that's much better than waiting until the next meeting and letting them know then, because at that meeting, they may be all primed for, okay, we got X, Y, and Z done, what are we going to do next? And then when they hear it isn't done, it's going to be disappointing, even though they would understand what had happened. There will be this disappointment that they're not as far along, and so that's just a little nugget of negative feelings that's now associated with you, even though it wasn't your fault. It's just this little nugget there. And if lots of those little nuggets happen, they can kind of build up and become something big. So it's just much better to stay in sync with them as much as possible for these big events. Now, obviously, I'm not saying that you're going to send them messages like, oh, dinner is late tonight, so I'm not going to get to that till 2 p.m. or whatever. They don't want to know how you're spending your time and dividing things up. So this isn't something that you would typically do often, but if something big comes up that's going to take a big chunk of your time, that's when you want to let them know. If you run into them in the hallway and you're having just random conversation, feel free to let them know how far you've gotten. If you're behind schedule a little bit, you can have that conversation. But it's really only appropriate to send them a message if you're going to be thrown off your game in some substantial way. Okay, I think that's it for this video. We'll see you in the next one.